So, hello and welcome everybody. My name is Yusra and I am Program Associate at Project EduAccess. Today we are doing a workshop on Ertegun Scholarship at University of Oxford, and we would start now. As you know, we will begin with a short presentation, which will be followed by a Q&A session. And during that process, I request that you keep yourself mute during presentation and only unmute when you're asked to do so. Also, there is this disclaimer that this full session, including the Q&A part, will be recorded. And if you are comfortable being in the recording of the session, then you can keep videos on and directly ask questions to the panelists during Q&A. If you're not comfortable, you can keep your videos off, and when we move to Q&A, you can put questions in chat or send them as a DM to me or the panelist. So this is the outline of today's program. I will introduce you to Project EduAccess, and I will also introduce our esteemed panelists. And then they will walk you through eligibility criteria of Ertegun Scholarship, its timeline, application process, selection criteria, statement and essays, and some general tips. And after that, we will proceed to the Q&A session. So what is Project EduAccess? Project EduAccess is a modest attempt to improve inclusivity in spaces like education, leadership, professional opportunities by removing some of the barriers such as cost, information, and dispositional barriers for marginalized communities in the global south. We aim to improve the participation and representation of individuals from marginalized communities in higher education and create avenues for their personal, professional, and leadership development. We do this by adopting four key initiative evidence to be effective in achieving these aims. Firstly, by mentoring, counseling, and role modeling. Secondly, through information, advice, and guidance. Thirdly, through capacity building and leadership skill development. And last but not least, evidence-based advocacy. And these are our amazing panelists for today. We have Faisal Javid, who is pursuing Master of Studies in Comparative Literature and Critical Translation from University of Oxford. He is Ertegun Scholar 2025. He speaks Kashmiri, English, and Urdu. We have Mariella Masolo. She is pursuing DPhil in History of Medicine, Science and Technology at University of Oxford. She is also Ertegun Scholar 2025, and she speaks English and Lingala. So over to you, panelist. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone. So I will start off. I'll be going through the overview, kind of telling everyone a little bit about Ertegun and kind of its mission. So to start off, the Meakin Ahmed Ertegun Graduate Scholarship Programme is kind of set up for students kind of pursuing humanities specific courses at the University of Oxford. The mission of the scholarship program is to fund graduates early to study in the humanities at Oxford. The typical Erskine scholar is somebody who is highly qualified and kind of meets these three requirements. So they have a plan to enlarge their knowledge, they have the desire to extend their vision, and they seek the opportunity to exchange their ideas. And this becomes particularly relevant when we talk about the supporting statement later on. The scholarship is very unique in that it covers 100% of course fees. It provides a grant for living costs, and the current rate for this year, this academic year, is 20,780. It also provides access to Erskine House, which is right at the center of Oxford. It's very convenient. It's quite close to pretty much everything. A designated desk, which you share with, I think, three or more other scholars. It's kind of your safe space. You can decorate it as you wish. You can personalize it as well. And also, I think the best part about Ertegun is the community. You get to be involved with a very small yet rich interdisciplinary group of scholars who are who are studying various courses. So it's really wonderful, and we're looking forward to talk about that more as well today. Next slide, please. Yes, so a little bit about eligibility criteria. So obviously to apply and to be eligible for the scholarship, you must kind of apply for a humanities-based course. And there's a list there of um, some of the faculties that consider Ertegun scholars, such as classics, fine art, history, music, and theology. There is a list of all the exhaustive eligible courses on the Ertegun website. And I think also something to note about this scholarship is that current graduate students are not eligible to apply. And what I believe that means is that if you are, for example, in the first year of your MPhil and you're already a student of Oxford, you are not eligible to then apply for Erskine to fund the second year of your MPhil. And that also applies if you're a current Oxford graduate doing, for example, the first year of your DPhil, you would not be eligible to apply for Erskine to then fund the remainder of your years. However, I think anyone who intends to begin a new course is eligible, whether that is an additional, so whether that is you've already done a master's or a graduate degree, if you've already done your DPhil, as long as you are starting a new course, you're more than welcome to apply. And also another thing to bear in mind is that this scholarship cannot be held in conjunction with any other awards. So you cannot, receive the Erskine Scholarship alongside another award at the same time. So keep that in mind as well. So yes, next slide, please. You're on mute.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Marielle. Hello, everyone. And so talking about the timeline, you will have to submit your application along with your Oxford application around December and January deadline. So when you will be writing your own Oxford application, you will have to submit the essays of the Ertegun along with that. What you do is you tick the box when you apply, and that's how you submit your essays. And when you apply after that, your department has to nominate you for the interview. And the interviews will be held around like January or February. That's when you will hear about it. So, but it's really important that the department nominates you, only then you will be interviewed. And the Ertegun Scholarship Selection Committee would consist of the head of the humanities, and then there will be different representatives from different faculties. And then the board members of the Ertegun Scholarship will also oversee the selection process. So the people who will be selected as Ertegun scholars would hear around like early March or around April. If you do not hear till then, so you should assume that your application has been unsuccessful. And the Ertegun Scholarship also adheres to early January deadline, with the exception of certain different courses held by like global area studies or different social science division. So for example, if your course has the deadline in March, but you will definitely have to apply by January deadline if you want to be considered for the Ertegun Scholarship. You cannot apply around March and then think about, okay, I want to be considered for the Ertegun Scholarship. It's really important that you adhere to the deadline, which will be around January to 7th or 28th. Next slide, please. Okay, the application process. So as I already told you, you apply to the scholarship at the same time when you apply for your Oxford application. So you take the box of the Ertegun Scholarship, and so you will be considered for the funding, and then you upload your statement as a PDF. Various people have, like many people have questions around how to do this document, the Ertegun statement document. So when you go to the website, you download it in the Word form, and then you type in your essays or like copy paste your essays, and then you make a PDF of it and you upload the PDF document, not the Word document. And it doesn't matter which style or what should be the size of the words or your format. That doesn't matter as long as you upload it into PDF format. And please refer to your preferred courses website if you want to know more about your course and how does it work around the Ertegun. Yeah. Next slide, please.
Yeah. So I think the most kind of important part of the application process is definitely the supporting statement. So you must complete an Ertegun supporting statement and upload it, like Faisal said, as a PDF document together with your kind of your wider application form by the application deadline in order for your application to be complete. I think a note here is to not forget this part. do not forget to upload your supporting statement. If you don't, your entire application will not and cannot be considered. Regarding the statement itself, so you have to answer three questions with a word limit of 500 words that relate to the aims and missions of the wider scholarship program. And there are also some guidance notes available on the website. I think the Erskine website itself is a gold mine. I would really advise all of you to really kind of sift through the website, including the guidance notes, because that's what I use, and it was really incredibly useful. And so that will help you complete the statement.
It's great. So, and the selection committee will consider, oh, can you please do the last slide? Okay, thank you. So the selection committee will consider your supporting statement in conjunction with your course application. So what's really important is that you do both of the essays, which are Ertegun essays, along with your supporting statement, whether that'll be like statement of purpose or personal statement. You do it really, really well, because it's really important to consider that you will only and only be considered for the Ertegun scholarship if you would be nominated by your department. And how will they nominate you will be based on your statement that you do for your Oxford application. So as long as your Oxford statement is like very, very strong, that will increase your chances of being nominated for the Ertegun scholarship. So that's really, really important. And the scholarship committee will be overall looking for, as Marielle already introduced you, to these three main criteria, which are like a very broad headings. So you should have like a plan to enlarge your knowledge and like extend your vision. And you should be keen on observing and sharing your ideas with other people. So we will talk a little bit more about all of these in the statement questions. Next slide, please.
I'm sorry, I think there's just been some technical issue with the slide. I'm just going to share it once again.
I guess maybe in the silence we could talk about maybe Faisal how we were feeling, or like any tips on approaching the writing. I think one thing I would say is definitely give yourself some time. I know doing a DPhil application in itself is such a big endeavor, but scholarships are just as important. So rather than, thinking that you can do it last minute, I think it's quite wise to, really think about it, plan it ahead of time, and kind of think about what you want to say before, the 7th of January, for example.
Definitely, I agree with you, Marielle. I personally think that I spend most of my time for the Ertegun essays, because even though these are the essays where you can probably like reflect upon your life and you don't necessarily have to go around your academics and everything, but at the same time, these are like very open questions and very broad questions where you have to really think about how do you want to frame your answer, and how at the same time will it relate to these mission of the Ertegun, which is around these three main criterias. There definitely is a buffer zone that is like required before you apply, and not do it like the last minute. And during my application process, I really realized that about applying and about all of these scholarships is that it's not about how much effort you would put into this one application or when you're applying. It's also about how much work you have put into all these years that you were thinking about all of this, or maybe like doing your undergrad, doing all of these different things that other people are not doing, but you're still doing those, whether that be like debating, whether that be sports, or any kind of thing that you're doing outside your academic curriculum. So I think it's really, really important that you think about all of these scholarships in terms of that. It's not just about thinking about what to do and just going around all of the things around scholarships while applying, but it's also important that you do all of these things before applying as well. That's what I realized.
Yeah. And also something I'll add as well is because I also wrote a master's application to Oxford and a DPhil application. So I would say the DPhil application, like the research proposal was so limited. I think the word count was like 1,000 words. So I couldn't really talk about myself. I had to really talk about methodology, do a mini literature review. And so what I really liked about the Ertegun kind of scholarship application process was that I could talk a little bit about myself, about my experiences. I could also be a bit more creative, talk about my academic journey and also a little bit about why I was interested in the humanities. And I think there's that kind of creative freedom that the research proposal doesn't really make space for, and you can really kind of self-insert, which I think is great. I think we can, is the screen back? Yes.
Is the
So
screen visible? Sorry for disrupting. Yeah.
no worries. Yes, it is. I think we can go to the next slide and kind of dive into the statements. Okay, so writing your answers. So the first one is, please explain how your study and career plans will advance this mission. You may refer to your motivations and aspirations as well as the specifics of your previous/current and future study or work experience. So again, this is a maximum of 500 words, which seems like a lot, but actually when you start writing, it's like you have so much to say, and it's like, what do I include, what do I not include? So I guess we can talk about that. Faisal, do you want to start?
Uh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So the thing about this very first particular question is that you feel like, what am I going to write about all of this, and how would it be very relevant to what Ertegun is doing? So what really, really helps with this is you think about, so in terms of these questions, you do not just think about what you will do in future. You think about what you have done in past, what you're currently doing, and what you want to do. So what helped me with these questions was like thinking about my overall life and tying my past, present, and future together with these questions and talking about my experiences, which I already had. Let's say, for example, I was part of this debating community, or maybe like I was part of this group which did reading sessions. So where we were together and we would just read and go through different kind of things. So that really, really helped me to base these essays and write about them, in the sense that I tried to talk about what I already did, what I was doing back when I was applying, and what I was thinking about. Okay, if I'm going to be part of the Ertegun House, what will I be doing? What helps with that is also checking all the information that is available online, going through the Ertegun website or going through the Instagram account, so that you get a hint of what Ertegun House is actually involved in. So that is something which like really, really helped me with this question. And also in talking in terms of humanities, it's also important to think about what is the condition of humanities, or what is the overlook of humanities, where you come from, how is it looked at? I know, like from South Asian perspective, humanities is like looked down upon. So if you are giving your time, if you are thinking about researching in humanities, you are actually giving your time and energy into something that is not being widely read, or that's not being supported. So that is something which you will come through and bring through yourself to the Ertegun as well. And at the same time, you would be doing a very good job in terms of where you come from as well. Yeah, Marielle, if you want to add something
Yeah,
else.
that was wonderful. I think the thing about this question is you have to kind of try and make your experience shine in a sense. Don't shy away from talking about kind of the things that you've done in terms of perhaps your work experience or your academic journey itself. I think no experience is too small, irrelevant, quote unquote. For example, in this section, I remember I wrote about my experience with tutoring, kind of volunteering within like African charities, which linked quite well to what I am actually studying. I think I also tied that into like my future goals, which is I want to teach ultimately. So I think kind of pulling your past experiences and thinking about, okay, what does that say about where I'm headed or where I'm heading? And also I think it's great to write this with the missions with the mission with Ertegun's missions in mind, or goals in mind, sorry. Like, having a plan to enlarge their knowledge, have the desire to extend their vision, and seeking the opportunity to exchange your ideas. I think as you're writing all of these questions, you're trying to weave in those aspects, drawing in from your life experience. And also, I think I got quite personal in my research proposal. I was talking about, my relationship with where I was born, which was the Democratic Republic of Congo, and kind of again how that ties in with my my wider DPhil research. So you really have to ask yourself, really, why am I applying, and why am I specifically applying to Ertegun? Um, what is it about Ertegun that makes me want to, advance its mission? So, write with those questions in mind. I think it's quite a good tactic to just write freely, without thinking about this big, grand scholarship. Just to get everything out from the heart, and then you go back in and edit. I think that's the best way to perhaps approach it. Also talk about, your intentions to study at Oxford and be quite specific as well. So again, it depends on who you are, where you're coming from, and what you're studying ultimately. But I think, yeah, just writing from the heart is great, is the best thing you can do. Next slide, please. Yep. So the next one is an aim of the program is that the scholars shall contribute intellectually to their country of origin or to their community and act as an ambassador for the humanities. How will you further this aim? And this is also 500 words. I think this question is kind of about talking about how you will involve yourself within Ertegun and beyond. So beyond, meaning Oxford, University of Oxford. So I guess here you could talk about your future plans, so you can include, projects or societies or events and communities that you want to join or create, which I did talk about. I got very specific about communities that I want to create whilst at Oxford, kind of gaps that I identified whilst being at Oxford during my master's and what I would like to implement. And also, I think talking for me, I guess it was kind of, easier for me because I come from two countries. So I come from the DRC and Britain as well. So I was able to talk about wanting to represent both of those countries and how I have done so, being part of an African network and convening that. So pulling in my experiences again. So I think, again, it will be specific to your identity and who you are, but you can definitely be creative again.
Definitely, Marielle, that's really, really helpful in terms of thinking about this question. So what I also did with this question was I reflected upon the different kind of societies I was part of again. Like I was part of this society called Fiction Writers Guild. So we held programs each weekend where all of these people coming from different backgrounds would come, and there would be fiction readings, let's say like a short story reading, and it would be followed by discussions around it, critique around it. And also it would be followed by having tea, having casual conversation. So it really, really helped me to reflect upon that, the values that I gained from that particular community where I became familiar about so many things. I did networking, which is really, really important when you think about these kind of courses at Oxford. So I reflected upon these kind of experiences. I also talked about that in terms of what I want to do for humanities and like act as an ambassador. I talked about I was part of this very particular community called Transcreation, where we would meet sometime and we would do museum visits. We would go to coffee houses, tea houses to have conversations around translation, around literature. So I reflected upon that experience and how I became aware about what gaps need to be addressed and what kind of work needs to be done. And I reflect upon this essay that I want to do something around that same community where I could probably like do base a foundation of it, where we would do more work than we were already doing. So that's something which I reflected upon, and I would really, really suggest as well to look into other different societies that Oxford has. You would be really surprised to know how diverse the societies here are. You wouldn't believe that there's a tea tasting society here. So where people get a chance to taste different kinds of teas from all over the world. So there are very diverse things going on if you think about what you want to do. And the thing about is this acting as an ambassador, it's not like you have to be on top of everything. It also has to be about how you are giving your time to humanities itself. That is something very, very valuable because you're giving 1 year of your life or 3 years of your life to humanities, which is really important. So you can think about these questions in terms of what transferable skills you also want to gain from this program or maybe from the Ertegun House that you would probably be able to bring back to your home country. And by meaning this, by keeping this question there or by being this ambassador in humanities, it doesn't mean that you have to return to your home country after you complete your graduation or after you complete your DPhil. That's not a necessary criteria of the Ertegun. But you can still do something around it, maybe online or maybe in your further years of life. And since you're already part of Project EduAccess, you could probably maybe reflect upon it and maybe talk about it that you want to act as right now you're mentees with us, but maybe you can talk about you want to become mentors of future applicants where you would be helping them with their admissions and applying to humanities. That is something you can also talk about in your application. Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I also agree. I think pushing the boundaries and not being afraid to actually um, create a answer that might not really feel conventional. I think oftentimes there's an expectation to write a certain way, and I think definitely in my experience writing academic essays, I always kind of took myself out of it, and I didn't really kind of explore like a particular kind of writing style or idea. So I think have fun with it, which sounds crazy to say, you're applying for this huge scholarship, but definitely try your best to kind of think outside the box regarding, your identity, what you've done or what you hope to do, as Faisal has said. So don't hold yourself back. Next slide, please. Yep. So the final question is, after having reviewed the information about the Ertegun community on the Ertegun House website, how would you contribute to the community during your time in Oxford and after graduation? So I don't know if you want to start this one.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to do that. So about this very particular question, there is so much to do and so much to say, actually. So what helps with this very particular question is, as we both already said, looking into the information or that's already available out there, then going through the Instagram of Ertegun Scholarship and looking at what kind of events are they organizing, and also taking a look at the website where you would come to know about what kind of events they have where you can be part of it or maybe something like which you want to do. So what I did with this very particular question is I actually had fun with this question because I talked about my culinary experience in this very particular question where I talked about, okay, I want to organize this very specific event where we would probably like talk about translation, talk about a different kind of myths in our own cultures. And also I tied that all with the dishes that are very prominent for us or that are like our representatives. I talked about maybe I would really love to make kava for people because that is something that's very particular to my culture. So I really tied this question to my overall experiences and also took a look at what was already available there. Like, for example, one of the events that Ertegun does is Navroz. So that is something that talked to me and I was like, I want to do this. I want to be part of this. So you can probably also talk about how you would help the other scholars with their own events. That's something that I also did. So I talked about how all of these people are organizing events. I would really like to be part of them and help them with their setup, help them with their clearing up. That's what I actually did. And you'll be surprised to know that Ertegun House does so many events. Like it's really, really rooted in for scholars, always tries to do something for them, whether it be like movie nights, where you get free pizza, whether it be Wednesday seminars. So that's one of the series that Ertegun does. You have to be there. You also get free lunch. You could talk about that you want to be part of the seminars. You want to actively involve yourself with the discussions. You could talk about maybe something you want to organize on your own, a very particular event that is tied to you. I know some people talk about maybe they want to form this community of readers where they will get together and do reading sessions, something around it. So have fun with this question and also do take a look at the website again and look what is available there. And so maybe if you want to do the same thing as well. Yeah, Marielle.
Yes, I totally agree. I think this was the question where I also had a little bit of fun. I talked about music. I kind of pretty much planned an event, like a kind of an African, like, well, not, well, yes, African kind of music night, listening party kind of thing. And I linked back kind of music's relevance to Congolese history to the Congolese community, the Congolese diaspora, and it kind of what it means for social cohesion and kind of spiritual expression and also political commentary. And I weaved that into an event. I talked about, having Congolese food like plantains, kind of cassava and things like that. We actually talked about that in my interview as well. They delved into that. They wanted me to speak a little bit more on that. I think, yeah, it's to have fun and to really, again, bring forth your identity and who you are, not shying away from your culture, what makes you you and wanting to share that with the Erskine community. And I've actually already done something like that. I did that with Mooney. We had like a um, Black History kind of movie night where we had these kind of foods, and we were able to have these conversations on like the African diaspora in Britain and things like that. So you do actually get a chance to actually do these events, but I don't think there is kind of an expectation for you to. So don't kind of write it with the feeling like I have to actually do this. I think you also get a choice to. So I think that's why you get to be a bit creative, but also at the same time, be realistic regarding what you can and cannot do in terms of the events and kind of communities that you want to include. I think the people that kind of review these applications are looking for authenticity and for you to be genuine. I think that can come across in the way that you write and the way that you convey who you are. Something I also planned was like a language kind of exchange night with the house where we could like because it's been such a global community of people like all around the world. So I thought that would be like a great way for us to share and learn about each other's cultures. So, kind of thinking again outside the box and also self-inserting, I think is great. I think also asking yourself, how do I envision myself being part of this interdisciplinary community? It's an opportunity to show your personality as well. What makes you you? Are you into sports? Are you into reading? Would you like to do like a book exchange or like a blind date with a book sort of thing? Really immerse yourself. I think, again, one of the best, I would say, applications that I've seen within Oxford because they want to hear about you, and what makes you you. So I think have a think about that. I think, yeah, again, I remember in my application, I linked a lot to how, Erskine was like an ideal intellectual home for me. I really stressed a lot about how I would really value to kind of be around people who are doing things beyond history, looking at people who are doing English courses and studying religion, philosophy, and again, how that would be valuable. So, in terms of like creating a society where we could all share, coming in from different perspectives, and if that makes sense. But yeah, again, just have fun, like Faisal said, be creative. Yeah, I think that's kind of the reoccurring themes of this application process.
Definitely, that's really, really helpful. And I should really stress here that Marielle's event was really successful, and
Thank you.
almost everyone showed up to that event. The food was amazing. The documentary was really, really good as well. The
Thank
event
you
was
so
like a
much.
high success.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I still have to write the report. Okay. I think next slide, please.
Okay, so the presentation is over, and now the floor is open for the questions from the participants. You can feel free to ask your questions through the DM or the chat box. You can also raise your hand, speak on your turn. I already have some question in my DMs. I would wait. So the first question is, can you describe the Ertegun interview structure and the types of question asked in academic, personal, ethical, leadership focused, etc.?
Yeah, definitely. I think thinking back to mine, it was kind of split in two. It was one aspect of it was quite technical. So a lot about my proposal for the DPhil, a lot about, my methodology, a bit about historiography and things like that. So kind of, making sure that I really know what it is that I want to study at Oxford. And then the other aspect of it was a little bit about the things that I had written about in my application. So the supporting statement for Ertegun. So like I said, to delve in a little bit more about the events that I was kind of proposing to carry out, a little bit about my experiences with, I talked about my experiences with faith since my DPhil is a little bit focused on religion and medicine. So I talked about my personal experiences and they wanted me to expand a bit more about that. So I think it's kind of making sure you know about your study and your area of expertise because it is an interview led by your faculty and not by Ertegun. And then also making a bid as to how much you understand the community, so the Ertegun community, its goals, its missions. Um, yeah, so kind of those two aspects. Yeah.
Definitely,
Um,
that's really, really helpful. I'd like to add like one small point here. So the thing with the Ertegun interviews is you'll be really surprised to know that you will probably receive your invitation to interview within 24 hours of receiving the invitation. So that's what happened with me. Was the same for you, Marielle?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
okay.
a couple of days. Yeah.
So for me, it was like within 24 hours.
Um,
So yeah, but in terms of the interview, I think it would really differ from faculty to faculty. For me, it was a little bit informal, and at the same time, it was a little bit about what I wanted to do in terms of like an academic interview, you can say. But you have to be really, really aware about what you have written in your application because questions could probably even come from why is this very particular sentence? Why not something else? Why this word and why not this word? So you have to be really aware about what you write. And with the interviews, just be yourself, be confident. I would really suggest that not stress at all, because that's something that really, really helps. They are they want to do an interview because they want to select you. So they are not there to get you, but they want to make sure that you get the funding. So they just want to know more about you as a person, about you can probably like talk more about what you have written in your statements. So the interview experience for me was like a good experience of having conversations with one of the conveners of
yeah,
the course. Yes.
yeah. I would definitely describe it as a conversation, though I think it's quite normal to feel very nervous. I was very nervous. But then you remember that, like Faisal said, they want to select you. So you just coming in with like an openness and again showing your personality and and kind of your identity and not shying away from that, rather than being a very kind of like robotic academic being. I think just being yourself, showing your personality as well is a good idea.
Thank you. Another question is, if a research project is specialized and not immediately impact driven, how can one persuasively explain in the scholarship essay the ways it will contribute to the wider community? My proposed thesis addresses questions of literary techniques in an author's works, and I'm unsure how to relate this to broader societal contribution.
That's a very specific question.
Yes, that's a really, really good question. Uh,
Hmm. Sorry, you
thinking
go.
in, yeah, thinking in terms of impact, it's the thing about these Ertegun essays is like they don't want you to do immediately, just after your course or within the course, something extraordinary. They really know that master students get just like 9 months. So they know that there isn't enough time. So even if you'll not be able to organize a very particular event or like people here organize conferences. So even if you'll not be able to do that, but that doesn't mean that that is something that should probably keep you from not applying. In terms of your question about the authorial techniques and everything, so in terms of if you look at contemporary literature and everything, it's really a question emerging that what would authors want to write or how would the future writings would be done also in terms of how AI is growing into everything. So I think in terms of that, your question would definitely address some of the questions that are very contemporary at the same time, and maybe think more in terms of your transferable skills that you might gain after doing this research, if that makes any sense. Do you want to add anything else, Marielle?
I mean, I think try not to put yourself in a box by thinking too much about social impact. I'm not sure if you're applying for a master's and you're coming from undergrad. I think that's a big weight to put on your shoulders. I think maybe in terms of impact, you can maybe kind of pivot and think about, okay, how would I convey these ideas to other Erskine scholars? Because again, it's a space where we share ideas with each other and we kind of try to understand each other's courses and kind of research topic. So maybe you could think about how would I relate these? What is the benefit of being in this kind of interdisciplinary community? What would I kind of be able to share or disseminate to others regarding my um, topic? And what would I gain? Kind of what would I gain from having people who do history and English and philosophy and religion? How would they impact my kind of thoughts and things like that? I think, yeah, try not to put yourself in a very tight box. You might not know yet. And I think again, being at Oxford and doing a master's in the DPhil, those are the sorts of things that you kind of discover along the way as well. So don't put too much pressure on yourself, I would say, about social impact. Yeah.
Elise has asked, does having a potential advisor prior to submitting the MPhil application make or break my chances of being nominated by my department?
I don't think so. If I understood, I don't think it does at all. I think the person who conducts the interviews, I think it's the director of graduate studies, right? The DGS, rather than a particular supervisor, if I'm correct. So I think kind of the supervision aspect of it all is not really, it doesn't, I haven't heard it to be a contributing factor to the application process at all.
Elise has raised her hand. I guess, Elise, if you want to go ahead.
Hi, thank you first of all for this informative session. I just wanted to make sure of something because in the application it says that it is good to have someone that could potentially supervise you, and I am worried that the department would look at my application and say this is an interesting research proposal, but we don't have someone specifically for it mentioned in the application, even though we could find later. So maybe that could be a reason why I'm not nominated. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Does make sense. I think when I was applying, I went to the kind of the people page. So the history faculty has like a people page, and I went through each of like the academics, and I kind of thought to myself, who could sort of be available and fit kind of my research topic. And so you're able to nominate a person, select them, and name them. And I think that might be able to give you a little bit more kind of comfort in terms of knowing that I have applied with this person in mind that is on your website that would be available, that kind of aligns with my proposed topic. So there's a lot of contributing factors as to who gets the scholarship and who doesn't. But the only thing that you would have to worry about is making sure you have your supporting statement, and also that what is it? What else is it? That your course itself is eligible for Ertegun. So everything else that the faculty deals with, I think, is separate to Ertegun. So that would be more so a question regarding your faculty rather than the scholarship, if that makes sense.
So
I don't know if
just
that's
to
what
just to double check, so I can name someone without having emailed them.
Yes,
Oh,
that's what I think. That's what I did for my master. Although it is always
Definitely.
recommended you reach out to that particular individual to make sure that your proposal aligns with their research topics. It's always a good thing. But I remember doing my master's, I actually didn't, because I didn't know that was even a thing. I was, applying for the first time, so I didn't. And luckily, I did get assigned to a supervisor. So yeah, it should be fine as long as you've identified somebody in your faculty, because you do have to in the application. I remember you do have to name somebody or two people.
I think it's actually for DPhil applications if you're applying for a DPhil. So you would definitely have to write the name of your
Oh, yeah.
supervisor or like maybe potential supervisors. But for master's applications, that is something not really, really necessary. But it definitely helps if you talk about a very particular supervisor or a particular professor in your application, in your Oxford application, where you would have gone through their work and saw like what kind of work are they doing, and if that's anyhow like relevant to your work. That actually really, really helps. That's something what I did in my master's application. So I went through the profile of my course and I saw all of these professors. And then I looked at the research of one of the professors, what they were doing. And that is something, when I went through the research, that was something that really, really appealed to me and my research as well. So I definitely talked like a line or two in my statement, Oxford statement, where I talked about, okay, there is this very particular professor, their research is centered around this very particular area, and that is something I want to do. That is very relevant to my project, and I talked a little bit about how my project aligns with that. That is something that really, really helps. But at the same time, it's not necessary that you would have to reach out to a professor before applying, unless it's a DPhil, definitely. And in terms of different kind of research areas that you want to do, I think professors here are really, really open in terms of they also want to explore something new. So it might be really helpful to maybe reach out to a professor whom you feel like they probably like align with your interests, and maybe like check out with them, hey, I have these research, I have these very particular interests. I want to do my research around this area. Are you interested in working with me around that? Just to be sure, and so that you come to know whether there is someone who wants to do it or not. So maybe that might help.
Thank you.
We have one follow-up question on the interview. How did you prepare for the interview, and what preparation strategies were most useful in hindsight?
That's a great question. I'll just be really quick. I went through my supporting statement for the Ertegun Scholarship. Kind of made sure that I knew what I had said because I'd written it again in December, and the interview came around February, if I remember correctly. So it was kind of refreshing my memory because I didn't think I would actually even get an interview. And so kind of making sure I knew what I had talked about. I also, for me personally, I also wanted to make sure that I knew a lot about my proposed research, because obviously mine was a DPhil, so I had to I wanted to make sure that I knew like relevant scholarship, relevant historians. I wanted to make sure I knew like my archives, my methodology. And I was asked about archives as well. So I was happy that I had prepared that. So I wanted to, again, so for me, I wanted to know myself, my motivations for to really go over that again and again, and also know my research inside and out as much as you can at this stage. Which, again, I don't think you're expected to be an expert, but I think always great to be able to talk efficiently and concisely about what it is that you want to research at Oxford and why you want to do it at Oxford as well.
Definitely. That's really, really important to justify why you want to do this research here at Oxford and not somewhere else. For the interview, that really helps to look at what you have been through or what you want to do. And because you're already writing all of these proposals, you are already researching a very vast area of things. So you just need like a refreshment, as Marielle said. You just need to just go through it again. And that's something I also did, even though I only got like 24 hours. So yeah.
Arushi is asking, could you please tell what one should not write in the Ertegun application?
That's a very difficult question because you never know what will work and what will not. As Marielle said, so I also didn't think that I would get an interview or maybe I'll get the scholarship. I think nobody does. I have met all the other scholars and everybody was like, oh, I didn't know I would get the scholarship. You never know what it is exactly that they are actually looking for. But I would really suggest to be very open and transparent in whatever you write. Like, do not make things up. The thing about this is like you have to be really honest in what you write. They really know. So these are the people who have been doing this for many, many years. So they know if somebody writes and somebody's like faking anything, and then they could also like catch you in the interview, maybe ask you something around it, and then you don't know how to explain about all of that. So like just be a little bit creative, have fun with the statements, make it a little bit unique to yourself, but also tie it to all of the goals of the Ertegun at the same time. That is something that would really, really help you in doing the essays. And there is not like a very particular format of writing, okay, this is the way you have to write these essays and then you will get selected. There is nothing like that.
Yeah, I agree. And I would also just add, like, don't police yourself in regards to what it is you're writing. Don't censor yourself either, because what you think is not, interesting or unique might be so incredibly interesting and unique to somebody who's reading it. So again, you don't know what they're looking for and you don't know what they want. I think Faisal is correct. Do not lie. Do not fabricate anything. Um, just be honest. And I think in your honesty, also be specific. Write with confidence, I would say, confidence in yourself, confidence in your proposed research, and yeah, don't hold back. They want to know who you are, where you come from, and where you want to go, who you want to be. And I think it's just a case of expressing yourself realistically. I think if there's something that you wouldn't want them to know, do not include that. But yeah, I think that would be it.
Latika Thakur is asking, when should one start preparing for the course application along with the scholarship to make a strong case?
I think it depends. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule as to when, you know, I don't think, oh, like I can't say, you have to prepare 2 months in advance or a year in advance or a week in advance. I think you know yourself, you know your writing, how you write, you know how kind of your routine or kind of your ritual as to when you need to be in that mind space to write well. I think the only thing I would advise is don't leave it too late. Like I know the deadline is like January 7th, and I wouldn't recommend like on January 6th you're kind of thinking, okay, you have like no words on the word document, and that's when you're starting. I would not advise that because all that panic and stress, and you're thinking, is this good enough? Which we all think. We all have those thoughts. So I wouldn't leave it until the last day or 2 days. I think, for example, starting from now is great. Particularly as you're coming off of this talk, you kind of have some ideas maybe as you're listening to us speak, or we've maybe given you kind of some inspiration regarding events. I think, just giving yourself the time and the pacing to think through and to kind of be as calm as you can be, is what I would say. And Faisal, over to you.
Definitely agree with you, Marielle. What really helps with these essays is maybe start together when you are writing your Oxford application, like Oxford essay. You could also start along with the Ertegun essays as well, because you're already thinking about your research and your overall experiences. That might help you in getting over with these essays as well, because your experiences will overlap with what you want to write and all the mission that the Ertegun wants you to mention about. But what helps with the essays itself is also maybe sharing them with your friends or people who are not from your particular research background, or if they are, so maybe like sharing it with them, having their comments and asking them, what do you think about these questions? That is something that actually helps with you, like reviewing your essays, and definitely do not leave it to the last minute. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree also, just to add, because I think the board itself is what's the word?
Yeah.
Non-specialized.
Specialized.
So I do think sharing it with friends and seeing if they actually understand what you're kind of trying to convey is such a great tool. Using your community and those around you is great.
Arushi is asking, once our application gets selected for the applied course, then only our application for the scholarship is in Oxford is considered. Also, can I apply for the multiple scholarships at the same time?
Definitely can, yes. So
Yeah.
it's always recommended to in order to maximize your chances of getting funding, apply to as many scholarship fundings as possible. So, and it's not like a hard and fast rule to just apply to the Ertegun only, then you would not be able to apply for anything else. That's not something that you have to worry about. You can apply to as many scholarships as you want to. And I think students from India are also eligible for Felix scholarship, as I'm aware. So that is something that the department will nominate you for that as well. So that's something you don't have to do a separate application for that. And at the same time, there is another funding called Clarendon. So that you will also be nominated for that by your own department. You don't have to do any separate applications. Other than that, look at what other funding opportunities are there, maybe which are particular to your course, or maybe like funding opportunities with a particular college. So you don't have to worry about just doing the Ertegun. Ertegun can be one of your funding applications.
I agree. Definitely apply to as many as you can, particularly with the humanities DPhil. That's what we need to do. I applied to quite a few other ones as well, and I think the key is that when the time comes to choose, you can only choose one. And so just be mindful that you cannot have an Erskine scholarship alongside something else at the same time.
Harshal is asking, I do not have any extraordinary profile and I have completed my graduation in 2023 in Bachelor of Arts from a government college in Madhya Pradesh, India. I want to apply to Oxford and the scholarships as well, but I'm always afraid that should I apply or not, because I always think my profile is not good enough, as after my graduation, I've been preparing for government exams and didn't do any internship or any kind of work anywhere.
That's a really difficult question in the sense that there is, as we already said, like there is not a very particular criteria that these people are looking at, where they're like, okay, if people have these kind of boxes, we tick those, and that those are the people that we'll select. It's not like that. Yeah, I can really understand the situation in which you might be, because I also come from almost the same background where we face such kind of circumstances. But what I have realized with time at Oxford is like the professors here or the people who are doing the admissions is they are really looking at how strong the project is and how viable the project is to be done here. So what really, really matters in terms of your master's application or your DPhil application is that you have to really, really make sure that people understand your project could only be done here. It cannot be done from somewhere else. And you also have to situate that this project is something which is like an urgent project. It needs to be done. And then, for example, Oxford has these many resources which will be very beneficial for your research. Or maybe like Oxford has this very particular professor who has his expertise in this very particular area, and that is something which you're looking at. So what really matters in terms of this application and admissions is that your project needs to be a very good project, and in terms of like it needs to be done here. But definitely if you have like internship experiences, if you have any extracurricular activities, that is something that adds on, because that speaks to your application other than what you have already done. It's never late to start, and unless you apply you would never know. I have met some students here at Oxford who just completed their graduation. They didn't have any internship experiences or anything, and they applied and they got the admission and they even got the funding. So unless and until you apply, you would never know whether they want to fund you or whether they want to give you a spot or not. And I should also tell you that I have met people here who have probably like done in terms of, but they have definitely done work. So they have just completed their graduation, did work for like 7 years, 10 years, and then thought, okay, I want to do a master's, and then came back here to do a master's. So there's not something specific around age criteria or maybe like the gap years that you have taken. That's not something you should worry about. So until and unless you apply, you would never know. That's what I would suggest. And you can still start with internships or with any extracurricular activity if you're really invested in doing studies abroad. So hope that
I
helps.
agree. I agree. And I also wanted to add that I think it's so important to give yourself a chance because how you define extraordinary might not be how somebody else defines extraordinary. It's very subjective. And I think oftentimes your research can only be done by you, if that makes sense. And you just have to convey that well in your research proposal and your supporting statement. I think have confidence in yourself and what you can bring to an institution such as this because we need more people, we need more diversity, we need, increased ideas. And I think these kind of interviewers and the people assessing these applications have that in mind as well. They're also quite future focused and not only like present focused. I would say in terms of experiences, like I knew people who had loads of experiences, which we would say is extraordinary and amazing, but then they also didn't get funding. So I think again, like you have to give yourself a chance. You have to just tell yourself, why not? Why not me? And take what you have done, whether you think it's too little or not relevant, and just expand on that. And I would also say if you do want to start getting internships and things like that, you could start with volunteering. That's what I did. I would just volunteer with organizations that really kind of touch my heart and giving free kind of my free time and things like that is also work experience in a sense, and that also counts, and opportunities can also be birthed from volunteering opportunities, and anything that you might have done, extracurricular activities also counts, so sports, music, singing, playing instruments, that also counts as being extraordinary because not a lot of people can do things like that. So yeah, just think outside of the box regarding who you are. It's not just like this static kind of professional um, kind of identity or like experiences. There's more to you than that. So yeah, just give yourself a chance, is what I would say.
Karishma has raised her hand. Karishma, if you'd like to go ahead.
Thank you. I have a little bit of a meandering question. So essentially, I did my master's way back in 2017. Um, I did my undergrad in history, did my master's in mental health, and have 10 years of experience post that in the field of mental health. Um, what I mean, ideally, what would work on an application and what I've been thinking of applying to is PhD and master's courses in the anthropology of medicine. But I wanted to ask you with regards to Ertegun and even just other kinds of scholarships, because the admissions itself themselves are so competitive, and then the funding is even more competitive. If let's say I want to apply to something completely different, when something that I did back in undergrad, which is history, but I have absolutely no experience in that field for the past 10 years. Um, Perhaps I can justify it in terms of writing the research proposal for the scholarship. How how likely is it, or how, because these things are so competitive, is there even a chance that these scholarship committees will take kindly to something like that, that you're completely switching fields?
Um, I don't know if I understood correctly. I think yes. I think sorry, did I understand your question correctly? Could you just repeat it a little bit?
Sorry, it was very long. My question was essentially, would they take kindly to the fact that um, I I am now going to switch back to something I did in my undergrad, which is 10 years ago, which is history of art particularly. Because for the past 10 years, I only have experience in mental health. So if I completely switch my fields, would that be something that they would look upon kindly? Because there'd be so many other applicants who have the works, in their applications. So yeah.
I think yes, but of course, this is coming from a student's perspective and not somebody within the faculty or on the board. But in my course, in particular, I'm coming across people who have taken, long gaps, and they're returning to education and they're returning to history. So I don't think there is um, anything that would count you out of making an application. I think what you would have to do is to kind of make a case for your return, if that makes sense. Make a case for your passion for the subject, for history. I think again, it's about giving yourself a chance, and about kind of being strategic in how you kind of perhaps answer some of the questions. But yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't consider you. Yeah, that's what I have to say.
Sure. Thank you, Maria.
No worries.
We will just take last question because of time crunch. Basit Nisar is asking, I already have master's, so would they consider my application for another master's, or should I be going for DPhil? And one more thing, do I need to produce a model paper? Do I need to produce a model paper like dissertation or some research paper for my DPhil master's application?
Uh, they would definitely take you for like in consideration for a master's application and also the scholarship as well. So the thing with the Ertegun is that it doesn't matter whether you have done your master's before or not, as long as you're doing a new master's. That's what's really important. And in terms of talking about your writing samples, I think it's writing samples are probably like necessary for your admission as well. So you would have to submit maybe like a 2,000 worded essay, two essays for your DPhil application, or maybe like a 4,000 worded essay for your master's or DPhil application. So writing samples are really, really necessary, but it doesn't matter that whether you have your dissertation in your undergrad or not. You could also maybe write your writing sample other than what you have been doing in your undergrad. It could be something really unrelated to what you did in your undergrad, as long as it's like a very strong academic piece. So it doesn't matter whether you did your dissertation in your undergrad or whether you have a research paper that you have actually published somewhere else. That doesn't matter as long as it's like a writing sample, a good writing sample. So I wouldn't worry about that.
I agree.
Okay, so with that, our session comes to an end. And before ending the session, I would like to tell the participant that tomorrow as well, we have very important sessions at 2 p.m. IST, Indian Standard Time. We have session for statement of purposes. And then at same time, that is at 4 p.m. IST, we have a letter of recommendation session. And then at 6 p.m., we have a session for PhD research proposals. So please do join us. And this was a really encouraging and fruitful session. Thank you so much to our esteemed panelists for sharing valuable insights and practical guidance. And also, I would like to thank our wonderful audience for your active participation and presence that made the session really meaningful. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.